What up, roomies? Tonight on Neighbors, we're exploring consciousness, identity, and what it means to remember who you really are. Our guest, Lisa Thompson, a best-selling author who work who works dives into galactic heritage, multidimensional consciousness, and channeling wisdom. Her books, Connection to the Cosmos, Wisdom of the Galactics, and Awakening Your Multidimensional Self, exploring how humanity fits into a much larger cosmic story. Tonight, where everything is on the table. Welcome, Lisa Thompson.
So happy to be here with you. Thank
I'm so
you.
happy you came on, and thank you for being here once again. And I'm really appreciative of your time.
Absolutely. So what do you want to know?
So before the books and the channeling and the cosmic language, like, how did you like get into like this path?
So I have been a lifelong experiencer contactee with ETs
Okay.
my entire life from my mother's womb onward. And my first conscious memory of actually being taken onto a spacecraft was when I was 15.
Oh
And I can,
snap!
you want to hear that, but
Yeah, I definitely want to hear the story behind that one.
okay. And then, I tried to pretend to be normal for most of my life, to be taken seriously in my various careers. And then I moved to Hawaii, to the big island of Hawaii, just over 5 years ago from
Yeah.
Olympia, Washington. And that's when I started my UFO tour here on the island. And that actually really prompted me to start sharing my stories and come out of the proverbial closet, so that
Okay.
I was then really increasing my connection with my galactic family and aspects of myself as well. So there's a whole bunch we can talk about there.
Oh man. Let's just start from the beginning. Then you said your first like memory of it was when you were 15. How did that experience? How was that experience? Like, walk us through that.
Okay, well, so it was a nighttime experience. So I was asleep in my bed. I don't remember how I got onto the craft, but I wake up and I'm inside the spacecraft. And I didn't have any fear. It was a smaller shuttlecraft, just me and my ET guide. And why I didn't have any fear was because he looked human, first of
Yeah.
all. And I felt like I knew him, like he was my friend. And
Okay.
so then we start flying through space. From the perspective of being inside the craft, the walls looked completely transparent where you could fully see out into space. And we finally landed where we were going. And when we got there, I asked him where we were. He said that we were inside of Io, one of Jupiter's moons.
Okay.
And then he started touring me around what looked like a hospital facility, where I could see into different rooms and people were being examined, but nothing scary. But everyone looked really human. So my
Yeah.
next question to him was, are you human? Is everyone here human? And he said, no, those of you that we have brought here are human. We are not. We are humanoid, but we disguise ourselves because our form tends to scare you.
Oh,
And so then my next question to him was, well, why are we here? Why am I here? And he said that those of us that had been chosen to be brought there were being tested to see if something happened to Earth, if we could live in an environment like that or something similar. Now, this was back in 1988.
yeah.
We were still in the Cold War. We were on the verge all the time of World War III. So there really was a timeline where something bad could have happened. So then at the end of the tour, I asked if I could see what he really looked like, because as a kid, I was obsessed with animals, and the weirder, the
Yeah.
better. So I
Word.
thought, whatever form he shows me, I can handle it. So what he looked like, he was about 7 feet tall. He had pure white skin, big dark eyes, and long red hair, like fire engine kind of red hair.
Okay. Okay.
And he had triangles tattooed on his cheeks. So very extreme in his size and coloration, but completely benevolent. So then I get returned back home, and I just remember laying in my bed, vaguely with the spaceship out in the backyard. My mom and I lived on 20 acres at the time, outside of Olympia, Washington. And so I just vaguely remember, that energy of the craft being in my backyard, but laying in my bed, like, okay, that is the weirdest dream I've ever had. And so I'm just, my teenage mind is like, that was a weird dream. So I didn't tell.
I feel you, because if something like that would happen to me and I woke up, I would have been like, okay, that was like a little bit too, you know, feels a little too real, but I guess you know, like I would have been like, okay, cool. But
Yeah.
that must
And
have been crazy. That's crazy though.
well, and so I didn't tell anyone because I did think it was a dream. But then a few months later, I was reading Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, which is about his experiences of being taken by gray ETs. And at the end of the book, he's interviewing different people that had been taken, and they all have the same kind of gray ET experience that he's having, except for one guy had a completely different story where he was telling Whitley that he had been taken to a moon of Jupiter and told he was one of the chosen ones. Whitley made then a little side comment, I hope it isn't Io. And as soon as I read that, full body chills, tears started coming down my face. And so that was my body's way of telling me that was a real experience, not just a
Yeah,
dream.
no,
Now,
definitely.
yeah. So then what happened? So my mother and I at the time, we were part of a spiritual school of enlightenment where we were learning about higher consciousness, things outside of this reality, ETs and other things. So I knew if I told my mom, she would believe me. So I did. And she got very excited. And then a few days later, she introduced me to another student at our spiritual school who had formerly been very high government, who knew about the
Yeah.
different races that our government knows about and works with. And so I shared my story with him. And when I got to the part of describing what they looked like, he was like, I don't know that race. He said, but we don't know all of them. There are so many out there. But he said, you had a real experience. So not only did I have my own knowingness, my validation, but then I had that external validation.
Yeah.
I didn't have to go through my life thinking I'm crazy, I made it up, it's just a dream. And it really planted the seeds for the work I do now as a galactic ambassador.
I feel you on that, because just thinking about like the experience itself, right? And you had this experience, you thought, okay, cool, it was a dream. Now you have somebody like, just confirming that, there are extraterrestrial species, and
Mm,
there are people that, interact with them. Mind you,
yeah.
he doesn't know which species you interacted with, but you had confirmation of location, and you had confirmation of, there's something else out there besides us. So it's like, that's a crazy experience. And you were still 15 at the time when you had gotten
I,
this confirmation, or a little older?
it was a few months later, and I had just turned 16. And how
Okay.
I remember was that when I was reading Whitley's book, so the time of the experience, my mom and I lived on that 20 acres. And then my mother had purchased a different property. And so I remember reading the book in my new bedroom at that house.
Yeah.
And so that's where I kind of pieced the time together. So I turned 16, but again, it was just a few months after. So,
And how many experiences have you had where you've met like your extraterrestrial guides and all that?
oh, countless. I can't even tell you how many because what's interesting is that most of my encounters, they don't let me remember them because they don't want me fixated on that. They want me to be here on earth, living my life, doing what I'm meant to be doing. But back in October of 2018, that's when it started coming back to me again.
Yeah.
And so, I went through the rest of my teen years and my 20s, and I was having interactions, but again, I wasn't like fixated on it because I was getting my PhD in marine biology and zoology, and I was just, I was doing life.
Yeah.
So October of 2018, then I was taking a several month long psychic intuition class. I had already started my spiritual business, but on the very first night of class, our teacher led us through a meditative journey to meet a spirit guide that would help us get extra information if we needed it. Now, I had already met some of my spirit guides, humans and some animals, but this time was completely different, where I went to a different realm. And in front of me were the most beautiful blue skinned beings. They had large bald heads, skinny bodies, this beautiful blue skin. And they exuded the most pure love I have ever felt, more so than
Mm.
anything here on earth. And their message to me was, you are one of us. We are one of you. We are family. And
Okay.
then we were to ask if they had a name that they wanted to be called. And so there was a group of them, but there was one that was to the front, that was the spokesperson. And so the name that that one gave to me was Uluru. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Ayers Rock in Australia, the big sacred site in the middle of the country. So
I
the
I'm vaguely familiar with it from
okay,
like little clips here and there, but I'm not too informed.
okay, well, so that site has reverted back to its Aboriginal name, which is Uluru. And so that was the name that was given to me. And then they also gave me a gift of a quartz crystal. Now, I came out of the journey. I didn't know who they were as a race at that time because, again, even though I had experienced things, I was still trying to be mostly normal and fit
Yeah.
into regular society. But we're sharing around class who our spirit guides are. Everyone had humans, but I'm describing these blue beings. And there was a lady in class who she happened to know what some of the different ET races look like. And so when I was describing them, she's like, that sounds like either the blue avians or the Arcturians. And so I went home and Googled what those were because I was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I,
I've heard of these names before. Like the Arcturians, I've definitely heard of them from like random clips here and there. And
yeah.
the blue avians, I have never heard of that species.
Okay, well, so when I looked at the images, the artistic renditions of these two groups, immediately when I saw the Arcturians, that's exactly what I had experienced in this journey. And so I was like, okay, that was real too. And so I didn't understand at the time why they were coming to me. And over the period of the several months in the class, I did experience some of the other ETs, the blue avians, my Andromedans, and a couple others. But again, it wasn't until I moved here to Hawaii over 5 years ago that then I allowed myself to explore it more fully, to really tap into, okay, what does this mean? Why? And so in 2021, that's when I started my UFO tour.
Yeah.
And so I was sharing my stories. I was really connecting with my galactic family. And my light language got activated October of 2021. And then when I started writing my book, Connection to the Cosmos, which came out in 2022, that Arcturian Uluru wanted to start channeling through me.
Okay.
And
Hold on, I got a quick question, right?
uh,
What is light language?
So, light language is a higher dimensional language. It can come in different forms from different ET groups.
Okay.
And really, so some people sound it out or sing it out, some people draw it, and people like me, I do it through my hands. And
Okay.
it can, some people do all of the ways. I can speak it too, but it always wants to come through my hands. And so it is a higher vibrational energy. Some people can interpret their own light language, but it's not necessarily meant to be fully like interpreted into human language, but
Okay.
it's an energy resonance. Yeah.
Okay. And another question too. How are the ETs and your spirit guides connected? Is it like a form of like higher dimensional like vibrations, or how are the two connected in this aspect?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So everyone has a massive team composed of different dimensional realms, different kind of energies. So we all have a vast angel team. We have our galactic team. We have our regular spirit guides, which are a little not as high vibration necessarily, but higher than what we are as Earth human. We have our animal guides, our elementals, the fairies. We've got like all of
Yeah.
it. And our
Okay.
past loved ones too. So they're all here to guide us. And depending on what someone resonates with more, So for me, I first tapped into my spirit guides and my animal guides, and I have such a strong connection with animals. Again, I have
Yeah.
that degree. And so really I was more accepting of that first. I didn't grow up religious, so the angelics, I was a little more like, okay, yeah, I'm not ready
No, I
to
feel you on that. I feel you on that.
to do that. But then with my galactics, again, I'm like, okay, yep, I'm here to be this ET whisperer in a way, a communicator. And so yeah, so that's some of the difference. But they're all operating in different frequencies in different realms, but they're all here to support us. And we can tap into any of it. It's just a
Okay.
matter of like knowing how to raise your frequency for that connection.
I feel
Yeah.
you on that. And a lot of people experience spiritual moments but ignore them. Did you ever like try like talk yourself out of it, or like were hesitant to like, make that connection with like your ETs or your spirit guides or like higher dimensional beings?
I wasn't, because throughout my entire life, so my mother, she was always into the metaphysical sciences. Like she was an astrologer herself.
Okay.
All her friends were astrologers, psychics, tarot card readers, things of that nature. And so thinking outside the box like that was just part of how I grew up. And then when I was 13, we moved from Oklahoma to Washington to attend that spiritual school of enlightenment. And
Okay.
so teenage years and into my 20s and early 30s, that was when I was really like expanding that consciousness and understanding those multidimensional aspects of ourselves as well as these other realms. And so I didn't have any fear at all. I just was like, okay, there are beings, entities that definitely resonate in lower frequencies.
Yeah.
Some people might call them demons or, other things like that. It's just a different frequency vibration. And so what was really important for me to do in connecting with my guides was really learn how to raise my own frequency and to clear away some of the judgments of myself, to clear away doubts, to really face those shadows, those inner shadows, because that's what keeps people in fear from like being afraid to connect perhaps with their guides.
I feel you on that. And like, how does one like essentially raise their frequency or like start like a process of kind of like ego death where they kind of like cleanse themselves of like their fears and like their procrastinations?
Yeah, well, that's actually, I have created a free gift for them, because people can do it on their own, but it really sometimes helps to have an external guide to help
Yeah.
you with that through the process. And so I created my multidimensional awakening kit to help people do this. And so this is a free kit that has 5 different high vibe meditative journeys, where one of them specifically is to clear away those judgments of oneself, like shame, guilt, perfectionism, all of those kinds of things. Because the more that we judge ourselves, the more we judge other people externally. When we're clearing that energy away, then we realize that everyone is on their own perfect journey. And there is, from a higher perspective, no right or wrong, no good or bad. We are infinite beings. There's more to this than just this one earth life.
Yeah.
And so basically this kit helps people clear that, get back to their own self-love and self-worth. And there's a journey that helps them connect with their higher dimensional guides
Okay.
specifically. And then also another journey to really focus on and create the highest timeline potential for this human life, this human experience. And then there's an ascension workbook that goes with it too. So,
Okay.
I mean, yeah. So that's what I have created as an offering to humanity to help really elevate that frequency vibration. Because what I do know now,
Yeah.
after being a professor of biology, being a mortgage being a designer, now I'm really here to hold that higher dimensional frequency within myself so that I can be an example and a light to others. And when each of us is raising our own vibration, it actually raises the collective consciousness. It raises the vibration of our neighborhoods, our
Yeah.
states, our countries, and the entire earth.
And believe me, right now in 2026, we need a lot of that.
We do.
We
Mass.
need a lot. We need a lot of that. But how important? What are like the ET's interest in like humanity, mainly like Earth? Is it just like because this is a habitable planet, or is it more to us?
So we have up to 22 different ET races in our DNA. And so some of them are here because they're our family and they're watching over us. Now, they can't go against our free will. So they can't directly interfere with us unless we're asking for that help on an individual level. But as a collective and as Earth, what they're able to do is they are making sure that we do not destroy ourselves with nuclear weapons.
That's a
Because
fact.
everything we do here on Earth actually has a direct ripple effect out into our solar system, into our galaxy, and then through the dimensions. And we do have beings living in our planetary bodies within our solar system, even though mainstream science has not so called discovered them. But these beings do reside inside of the planetary bodies. So, our next door neighbor is Venus. We
Mm.
have humans living inside of Venus, and they're higher dimensional, they're fifth dimensional and a little bit higher. So, because of that vibrational difference, when we're operating in our just normal human state, we're typically third, fourth dimensional reality.
Yeah.
And so something that's vibrating faster than that looks invisible to us, even though it's there. And so that's where when we start raising our vibration, we can actually see things that are there and we can connect with these higher dimensional beings.
Okay. And are there like any ETs that are on the third and fourth dimension that you know, are on our side more or less, say, or like have interest in us?
Yes, there are. And actually that's the way that I like to use this as an example is okay, so we as humans,
Yeah.
we are third, fourth dimensional reality, shifting sometimes to fifth dimension and back down. And one of the laws of third density, third, fourth dimension is polarity. We experience polarity, the good, the bad, the positive, the negative, the black, the white. Now, polarity from a higher perspective is simply a mechanism of evolution. It helps us learn, grow, gain wisdom. Now, what's interesting, if you think about humans, so, we experience this polarity. We have some humans that are kind, compassionate, loving, service to others kind of people. And then we have other Earth humans that are the complete opposite of that, right?
Yep.
We do have ET races that are like us in this third density where they are polarized as well. And so you're going to have some of those individuals being service to others and being pure love. And then you're going to have some individuals within the race that we would perceive having more of a malevolent kind of agenda.
Yeah.
Now, from their perspective, it's not, but from ours, it might be. But you can't put all humans into the evil category just because some are. Just like you can't put an entire race of an ET group that's in the same vibration as like a negative race. Does
No,
that make sense?
no, that makes perfect sense because just like humans, we all have individuals that show one side. Now we'll have a spectrum of emotions, and could be malevolent or benevolent.
Yeah.
Where I expect that other races or other species will also have that same spectrum.
Yeah. And so we do have some of these races that have throughout humanity's history interacted with us. And there are some that now still come and interact with humans. But most of these beings that are here, interacting with people like me or just watching over Earth, are in those higher dimensional realms. And so when you get to fifth dimension, and oh, Len, we have a lot of
Bless
fog
you.
happening right now from the volcano.
Oh,
Okay, I thought I was going to sneeze. It's gone. Okay, so fifth dimension and higher, that's where polarization starts to go away. There is no more of this push pull, good, bad. And love is the basis of everything. That is the universal law. And they understand unity consciousness as well. And so all of the beings that I specifically interact with, that I connect with, that I know are aspects of myself, are these higher dimensional beings that are pure love. And so, again, some of them,
yeah.
they're here watching over us, protecting us. And the more that people are starting to wake up to remembering who they are, it's not about learning who they are, but remembering who they are and how infinite we truly are, that's when these beings are able to interact with more and more humans.
Okay. And can anybody interact with them, or is it like you have to be at a certain vibration in order to, get that first contact?
So everyone's going to be a little bit different in how open they are to it. And so what I can say is after almost 5 years of doing my tours, and I've had thousands of client sessions where I'm helping them meet their galactic family and guides specifically. And some people are not quite ready to meet them. There's a wall there, and it's generally a fear-based wall. And
Okay.
but most of my clients are able to fully connect, and so I guide them through this process really to raise their vibration, because when we are connecting, we don't necessarily want to connect with the lower vibrational ones. That's
Yeah.
where there's fear, there's control, there's misinformation being given about reality. And so, really, in order to connect with those higher vibrational ones, people need to learn how to basically come to a neutral state and raise their vibration so that there's some connection somewhere in the middle there.
I get that. So is being more on a neutral on a neutral vibration, or like a neutral sense, the way in order to basically, if you become neutral, would you be able to be raise your frequencies easier, I guess I would say,
Uh,
or
yes,
more efficiently?
more efficiently. And it doesn't mean that you don't have states of being. And so, for instance, being happy is an emotion. Happy and sad are emotions, but joy is a state of being. It's not an emotion. Um,
Okay.
Being in your passion is a state of being. It's not an emotion. And so, those are examples. And being love, also a state of being. And it can be an emotion too. Love can have a lot of different meanings, but really pure love is a state of being. And so when we are in those higher vibrational frequencies, states of being, then we can become neutral to the outcome, because it's this or something greater. This or something greater. Our human mind, our ego, that wants to really, has to be this way, it has to be this person, this specific thing. But when we create an idea of what we want in our life and we trust, number one, we hold the focus, we hold the emotion as if it's already existed, we let it go of like, okay, this is something better.
Yeah.
And that's where the magic of manifestation happens.
Yeah, because you could put, and it's a great thing that you brought up manifestation, because I always had this particular saying with manifestation is that you could wish for the greatest outcome, but if you don't put any work towards it, it's not going to happen for you.
Yeah.
And also don't get too too hooked on the outcome, because somewhere along your path it might lead you to greater things as well.
Exactly, because our mind can only comprehend so much. And so when we just let go and just trust, that is where really, again, the magic can happen, because something even better that we never could have even perceived can come into our life.
That's dope. And let's see here. You were talking about galactic heritage, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to galactic heritage, how does one like find out like what their ET brothers and sisters are, or their ET family?
So we all do have some kind of galactic connection. Again, we have
Yeah.
everyone has those ET genes within them. And, yes, there's going to be a little bit of a different combination depending on who the person is. And there are going to be different beings that are important for this earth life compared to maybe other lives that they live. And so, for instance, for me, that Arcturian Uluru, that then in 2022, I realized that is me. That's an aspect of myself. I'm just channeling myself from this realm. Now, Arcturian Uluru existed in a time of our galactic history known as the Orion Wars. So if you or your audience fan of Star Wars at all, Star Wars is based.
I'm a big Star Wars fan. Yeah.
Okay, well, so Star Wars is based on real stuff that happened in our galaxy. So there really was like a dark empire trying to take over and control. There was a rebel force fighting against them. There even was a group like the Jedi called the Black League. And so my Arcturian life was during this time of the Orion Wars. And I was a master healer in that time. And so what's fascinating is that my role in the Orion Wars, it's come to the surface in a greater way. Like that life is bleeding into this life of me as Lisa. So number one, I am a healer in this life. I'm able to channel that energy healing frequency through my body. And that quartz crystal that they gave to me in 2018 was a representation of sending that energy from the Arcturian realm down to me here.
Okay.
And then I have my receiver crystal here where I receive that energy, and it helps heal my body. It helps create the environment to heal my clients and Earth. So that life too, though, I knew that it was me, but in 2024, November of 2024, someone else that I had never met, she remembers her full life during that same time during the Orion Wars. And she was an ET known as a Lyran, and they are the feline humanoid types. And she wrote a book about her memories of the time and the ending of the war and beginning of the Galactic Federation. And she has a podcast. I was on her podcast, and in the middle of it, she's like, "I know you." And she was like, "You're Arcturian." I said, "Yeah." She said, "You're a healer." I said, "Yeah." She said, "I wrote about you in my book." And I know. And so then she sends me a copy of her book, the PDF, and I start reading it. And I get to the part where she's talking about me. And I thought it was going to be really generic, like, okay, some Arcturian healer. But it was very specific. Master healer, Arcturian Uluru. And when I read that, because it's spelled correctly, like everything, like my body fully reacted, like, yes, validation again. And so I already knew for myself, but having someone else recognize me and my energy. And so what's interesting about that Orion War life, and a lot of people that are in this world with me are remembering that aspect of themselves, of whatever their roles were during the Orion Wars, because where we are in our Earth history and with the high polarity that we were just talking about, it's very similar to what was going on in Orion. So it's like that energy now is playing out on Earth for us to integrate the polarity to ascend to higher vibrational reality.
I get
And
that.
and that's why these lives are bleeding through. We have very similar qualities, characteristics to those other aspects.
That's so dope. With the Orion Wars, because my mind blown right
Yeah.
now. But with the Orion Wars, did that take place in a higher dimension, or was that on our dimension but in the past, or
Our
what we
dimension,
perceive as the past?
we perceive it as the past, but at the quantum level, all timelines exist simultaneously.
Yes.
So everything's parallel, but we experience everything as past, present, future in this very slow, dense Earth reality. So it would technically, from our perspective, be considered the very, very far past, but
Okay.
it's actually
So
right now.
technically, we're the galaxy far, far away.
Yes.
Oh man, that's so cool. And right, was there any like, all right, were there like any resulting factors like at the end of the Orion Wars that actually like affected Earth itself? Like, were we like, are the humans like that are placed here like a byproduct of the ending of that event?
Well, so what's interesting is that Earth, so we come here to Earth to experience that polarity. Like we really, and then we're here to ascend, to move beyond the polarity. That's really ultimately what Earth School is about. And sometimes people get stuck in these karmic cycles. And so with the Orion War, what happened was some of the souls that were fighting in the Orion War back and forth, they incarnated here on Earth. And so it's still playing out because they're still wanting to play those different roles to
Okay.
experience both sides of the coin. And
I feel you.
so that it's existing, it's going to continue to exist. But if you think of Earth as multiple timeline potentials, there are many Earths existing right now. And so there are going to be some people that want to stay in that polarity, fighting, pushing against each other, just to keep experiencing that. And there are others like me who are helping people to understand that, okay, we can get out of that. We can now shift our energy to that higher vibrational level where there is no more polarization.
I'll get you on that. And you said that there's multiple Earths constantly playing out at the same time, right? So that
Yeah,
would be something like a timeline shift. Am I phrasing it correctly?
you are. You are. So,
Right.
yeah. So,
So how would people be able to like shift timelines? Because I've heard of like quantum leaping and like timeline shifts.
yeah.
Would you would a resulting factor of you raising your vibration towards a higher plane, would that result in like timeline shifts to like, I would say, a better viewpoint, I guess, or a better
Yes.
perspective from my consciousness?
Yes, exactly. You got that correct. So,
Okay.
as an example, just with me and how it's happened in my life, is that before I moved to Hawaii, when I was in Olympia, I was highly political. I was an activist. I was very opinionated about how things should be.
Yeah.
And when I moved here, what my ETs told me is that I needed to stay away from the news, stay out of the media, completely pull myself out of anything political, because when we have our attention there, we get drawn down into those lower frequency vibrations just naturally. It's
Yeah.
just, we can't even help it. And so by me staying out of that, what I've been able to do is maintain a higher overall frequency vibration to have a cleaner energy field where I can channel these energies from these higher dimensional realms. But then also, what it's done is it has created an environment like for my body for deeper healing. I feel like I'm even reverse aging. I mean, I'm 53. I feel like I'm in my 30s.
You look great.
And
You look great.
thank you. And so it's what it's been able to do. I've also been able to truly like hold this place of love for humanity that I never had before clearing all these things out of my life. Growing up, I didn't like humans. That's why I wanted to work with the animals. I loved animals, but I did not like people. And so now I
Some
have a
people suck.
shift. So my reality has gotten even better over the last 5 years in so many different ways.
Okay. Wow. There's so many questions. So like just going back to like everything that's out there, right? What where so everybody has different DNA from different species. So
Yeah.
how did it all just collide into like this like collage or this kaleidoscope of like different ETs that are just like embedded in our DNA?
Okay. Well, so if you think about human history, the evolution of humans, and the form of how homos have changed. So what's really interesting, when I was in graduate school, I went to University of Chicago and I had a joint position at the Field Museum of Natural History, and my office was there. And at the Field Museum during the 90s, we had this display for the public called The Missing Link. And this was the missing
I
links in.
remember I remember in the 90s when people were talking about the missing link. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we have several places in our human evolution specifically where we have a massive change in anatomy and physiology, like almost overnight, with no transitional species in between. And so that's the so-called missing links, because there's no link to like how did we go from this to this, like again, seemingly overnight. What I now understand is that these were the times that different ET groups were here on Earth, basically tinkering,
Yeah.
experimenting with our human form, sometimes upgrading us, sometimes downgrading us, but really splicing their DNA into ours and modifying it. What's really interesting is that back when they did the human genome sequence, they found places in the human genome that looked just like genetically modified plants and animals, like where
Yeah.
things had spliced together and modified.
Like
And
I know recently there's been research done that one of the I don't know the right verbiage for it, but one of the end nodes of our DNA strand has been capped, and that's why we only have like a maximum age of like 120 or something like that.
yeah, so
Yeah.
something that's an example, yes. And so we have these different places where we had the splicing and modification. And one of the modalities that I do, it's called past life regression therapy. Now I've changed it to parallel life regression because everything's existing simultaneously. But one of the lives that I got to experience for myself was being one of these ETs that was a genetic engineer and coming
Okay.
here to Earth to actually modify the humans. Now, at that time, it was a beneficial way, and I was an ET from the star Sirius. So I was a
Okay.
Syrian engineer, and it was pretty wild to experience this because I got to see how it was being done. We were up in our spacecraft, and we were sending sound frequency down to the humans, and so that sound was changing up the DNA.
Okay. Okay. Now
Yeah.
I could see how sound could affect anything really because everything is a vibrational field. So
Yes.
if you tap into the right frequencies, you could either heal a cell or destroy a cell, or versus where you could modify a strand of DNA versus destroy a strand of DNA. I can see how that works.
Yeah. And so that was just one mechanism of how my group was doing it. Others were maybe more doing it actually like more physically, but
Yeah.
ours was at an energetic level.
And how connected is that towards like the story of the Anunnaki or like the quote unquote Garden of Eden?
Okay, well, Garden of Eden definitely was an experiment. We can call it a laboratory. So
Yeah.
yeah, so there is some truth in that story, and with the Anunnaki, there are different people who speak about it differently. Some people are like they are a one specific race. The actual translation from Sumerian is just those from the stars who came. So it's way more generic. But again, we have different ET races that have come. And so we've had different specific races that have done this over our human history.
That's so cool. That is so cool. My mind yet again blown. But all right. So when it comes down to like the human aspect of it all, right?
Yeah.
What would you say would be something that like all humans would need to like start doing today in order to like commune with like these higher dimensional races or
Okay.
species?
I love that question. So I know now why my first career was zoology and marine biology. Because if you think about the beautiful diversity that we have here on Earth and how these animals take on so many different forms, and some things people have a judgment of like, ooh, gross, ugly.
Yeah,
And others are like, ooh, I love that. Well, we have to first get over our judgment of ourselves and even humans, right? There's so
yeah,
much bias, judgment, racism, sexism, all the things going on around the globe. And so, in order to really accept that there are beings that some of them look like us, but most of them don't. And so, really, the more that someone is able to just appreciate diversity and understanding that the form of the body is perfect for the environment that that thing
yeah.
lives in, and to clear out those fears. Like, we have fear of the unknown, we just have fear of things that look different, that act different. And so, really, it starts within to really heal those judgments that we have.
Okay. So basically we need to like start moving past what makes us different and start uniting.
Yes, because
Okay, cool.
we are all connected. We
Yep.
are all mirrors of each other, whether we like that reflection of the mirror or not.
True on
And
that.
if we are judging someone, well, what that gives us is information of there's something. If I'm judging that, then there's something within me that has an essence of that that might want to be looked at and healed.
I feel you. Do you think that now in 2026 versus like your first encounter back when you were 15 that people are more open to like open to the idea of like expanded consciousness and like ET and spirit guides and all that?
Absolutely. Because I can tell you, I have been on this deep dive spiritual journey for a good 40 years, since I was
I
13.
feel you.
And back in the 80s, if you talked about ETs, people thought you were crazy. You're the tinfoil hat wearing, crazy people.
Yeah.
And now, whether even if there's disinformation and misinformation, we do have government closure happening at a very slow rate, but that has opened people's minds in a bigger way. People that used to be fully skeptical are now, some of them, I have seen it even in the last 5 years of doing my tour, more and more people are like, okay, maybe there's something to this. And more and more people are waking up. We are going to hit a critical mass where then once we hit that critical mass, then, we truly do have this ascension, this expansion.
And how do we know that a person is starting to go into the right alignment or raise their frequencies in the right direction?
Take a look at how your life is going. Are things coming easier? Are you in the flow? Are the people in your life? Here's the interesting thing is that whatever frequency we are vibrating at, people match us. And so if we are hanging out with people that we're like, why? I don't like what you're saying. I don't like your actions. then you know you are resonating in maybe perhaps a different frequency than you might want to be. And so like for me, I try to keep my energy up as much as possible. And my friend group has completely changed. And so now I have this amazing group of high frequency people that we keep each other accountable in this higher vibration together. And we're here on a similar mission. And so basically, take a look at your life and how it's going. And if you like your life,
Yeah.
you're good, right? And if there are
Yeah.
things like, oh, I could change that, maybe,
Yeah.
every one of us has the power to change our reality. And I've been
No.
through many hard situations in my life, like
Mhm.
many, and I've come out of it.
No, I completely agree with you on that. I feel that, whatever life throws at you, whatever the universe throws at you, it's meant to, I don't want to say harden you, but it's meant to like prepare you for something bigger. And
Yes,
it's there to, not only teach a lesson, but to quote unquote, strengthen you in a way.
yes. And what I have come to understand over these many years is that we do really actually have soul contract agreements to go through all, even the hard stuff, the good stuff, and the bad stuff. And we chose those as lessons so that we could experience it to gain the wisdom to come out even stronger and better. And so, again, throughout my life, I've been like, oh my gosh, another one. I have to do it. I'm learning this. But then I'm like the rising phoenix. I always come out bigger, stronger, more evolved.
No, I feel you. Because without difficulty, there's no growth or evolution. You know what I mean? So I would think that that's a common principle throughout all the dimensions.
It's
Maybe.
not.
Oh, it's
No,
not
it's more just this kind of I mean it is to a degree, but not to the extreme that it is
here.
here.
Yeah, I got
Very
you. I got you. Um, what are like, we also discussed that, there are lower vibrational beings as well. If
Mhm.
somebody's like starting their journey off, let's say tomorrow, what are like some cautious steps they should take before they like, jump into the deep end?
Well, I definitely making sure that if you are trying to connect with some kind of guide, that you are in a good emotional place. Like you don't want, and that you know, you're not in a lower vibration with substances like alcohol. And what I can give you a personal example of
Yeah.
this, which was kind of fun. It was like a real good lesson for me is so I'd already started channeling my higher dimensional beings and I knew what that energy felt like. And then one night I had had a couple glasses of wine and I'm just sitting around the table with my daughter and my husband at the time. And I could feel this thing want to start talking through me. And so I just let it. Well, it scared my daughter so bad. She was a teenager, but she's like, whatever it was saying, it was not good.
Yeah,
Um,
I believe it.
and she was like, don't ever do that again. So I was like, oh, okay, yep. So if we're going to be connecting, we want to be as clear, as pure in our energy field, our emotional field as we can be, so that we can be in that higher frequency level.
I got you. I got you. And when it comes to like channeling, how's the sensation on that? How's the feeling when it comes to like when you're channeling and you let another entity through?
Okay, so probably it's going to be different for everyone doing this, but how it works for me is their energy comes through the back of my neck. And so what happens is I can feel the pressure on the back of my neck. Then that energy comes down into my heart and then out through my mouth, through my vocal cords. And so whenever I'm channeling, it's always heart centered information, nothing fear based whatsoever. And that's again, because I've learned how to connect with the higher dimensional ones. But then that energy running through the body, it is very different than what physiologically our human bodies are used to. And
Yeah.
so it can take some getting used to running the higher frequencies. And it can also, like our body, sometimes go into a fight or flight kind of response. And connecting with the higher beings, it can feel almost like maybe we're dying, but we're not. It's just because it's a different energy that we just have to get used to. But once you're used to it, then, it just becomes a natural part of what your body can handle.
Okay. And so so in this case, it will be like working out spiritually in a
Yes,
way. Okay, I
exactly.
got you. I got
Like
you.
working a muscle.
You gotta make it if you want, no pain, no gain, I guess in this case.
Yeah. Well, and me,
Um,
when I did start channeling, I do have to say, it zapped me energy wise. Like I'm not a napper, but I would have to
yeah.
like lay down and nap. I would have to drink electrolytes to get my body recharged. Now I don't need that, but in the beginning, it was like that.
I was about to ask you because I know it must have been exhausting, or at least in the beginning, because of the fact of you weren't used to that sensation, you weren't used to those energies coming through you.
Yeah. So now that I have fully acknowledged and embodied that Arcturian Uluru is me, that separation is no longer there. It's now integrated into this physical body of Lisa. And so it's just always now I don't even really have to do anything. It's just there.
I feel you. For someone listening and they're just beginning their awakening, right? What's
Yeah.
one thing that you what's one thing that you want them to know?
That okay. All timelines are existing simultaneously, and you get to choose which timeline you want to be a part of. And so, do you want to be part of that push pull polarized reality where fear and control are pervasive? Or would you prefer to be coming in a state of love, joy, following your passion, being in play? And then able to really understand and remember who you really are because you have full choice in that.
How does one distinguish those choices, like when they're starting out?
So it's like, manifestation 101, law of attraction, what your mind focuses on, what emotions are playing, in your body, that creates your reality, either consciously or unconsciously. And so the more that you can hold your focus, so the consciousness, to whatever reality you want to be experiencing, and then feeling those emotions in your body again as if they are already like it's already a done deal. So you're fake it till you make it kind of thing. And
Okay.
then and then you do have to take the steps. So if something's coming across your path, an opportunity, and it is aligned with that particular life you want to be leading, take the step. Get over your fear and take the step. You don't have to know all the steps ahead of time. Just trust that very first step, and the new steps will appear.
I got you. And let everybody know where they can find you and your books at.
Okay, so my website with all of my different services and classes and retreats is at drlisajthompson.com or mysticmanta.com. I also have that free gift. It's at the top of my website, but it's also hosted at awakenactivatenow.com. So that's that free multidimensional awakening kit. And then if you're coming to Hawaii and you want to go on one of my UFO tours, I have bigislandUFOtours.com. And then I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel.
All right. Roomies, we're going to be posting those all down in the description. So you could definitely follow Lisa. Make sure you go check out all her things, especially that UFO tour. If me and my wife ever go to Hawaii, we're heading you up and you're going to take us out there. She's not into it, but I'll drag her along for the ride.
She might change her mind being with me.
Besides that, any final thoughts or any words of wisdom you want to leave the roomies with?
Just, we truly are infinite beings, and the more that we remember that, the more fun we can have here on Earth does not, it's like PhD level school, but the more that we know that this is a game, really, and that these are just avatars we're wearing, then we can play the game better.
I feel you. And roomies, remember, raise them vibrations, be kind to one another, because in 2026, we need a whole lot of love. Peace out.